Hello everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. Cheat on me and no one goes on vacation. My ex and I used to go to a Cancun resort every year with a bunch of our mutual friends. I found out my ex was cheating on me when I accidentally got a flight confirmation email that he booked tickets for himself and the other girl. It was rough. Tried to have a civil breakup, but he refused to pay me for the Cancun vacation that I had already prepaid. I tried to get my money back, but he refused. After our breakup, it took me several weeks to find a new place to live and move my things out of his house. On the last trip to the house, I asked him one last time for the money and he again refused. So I accidentally packed his current passport in my last box of things and left my expired passport in its place. Since he has already booked the tickets, he apparently didn't check the passport until he was at the airport and was denied the international flight because he didn't have a current passport. I never did get my money, but I did get immense satisfaction that he didn't get to go on vacation. Short, sweet, and effective. If you were in OP's shoes, would you feel pretty happy ruining this vacation for him? Let me know in the comments below. The old Uno reverse card. One day I came home from work and someone else's car was parked out front of my house. No matter. I park outside my neighbor's house. When I wake up the next day and go out to my car to leave for work, there's a note tucked on my windshield. I unfold it and it reads, "Do not park here ever again or else," in a font so large it takes up the whole page of the paper. I folded it up, placed it in my glove box, and there it sat for nearly a year. Until the day he parked out front of my house. I tucked the note he left me on his window and went to bed. The next day, as I was enjoying my morning coffee, I watched his wife go to get in the car and noticed the note. She read it with a puzzled look that quickly turned to rage. I thought she would storm over to ask me about it, but apparently she recognized her husband's handwriting and went to ask him. He had to sheepishly explain to her that he left it on my car, and she brought him over, tail between his legs, to apologize. We had a beer. He stared at the floor the whole time. It was cool. Well, I guess you can see who runs the show at the neighbor's house. I'm glad that neighbor had to enjoy some awkward pain for being so hypocritical and petty. Buried and gone. I was about 9 or 10 in primary school. There was one kid who was the bane of everyone's existence. Let's call him Jake. Jake was a little poop. He was spoiled rotten and delighted in seeing others miserable. One time when a friend of mine was climbing a tree, he threw half a brick at him and knocked him off. Never got in trouble for this because no adult saw it. Long story short, he's a poop. On one Friday, he was being particularly crappy, basically pulling hair, telling me I'm a sissy for reading books, telling others they were worthless and generally being a little crap. So while he was running around causing mischief, I quietly put down my book and went to the storage room. We kept shoes there. Honestly cannot remember why. I think to stop the floors getting scuffed up, and found his brand new super pricey stylish shoes. I took one of them, just one, and took it out to the yard. I dug a hole as deep as I could in the sand pit and dumped the shoe in. After burying it, I went back to my book. When my mother picked me up, Jake was frantically looking for his shoe. His own mother hot on his heels berating him for losing something so expensive. I left. As far as I know, they never found it. I'm just imagining 1 year later on, some kid starts digging up in the sandpit and what do they find? Some old dirty shoe that was buried years ago. Score! It was 80% my fault? So this was 6 years ago when my now husband and I moved in together after 2 years of dating. I, 24 at the time, moved into his, 31 at the time, place, into his room. While it was an overall good thing, changes can be hard and we needed to adjust to sharing space. One thing I'd like to stress is that we both were, and are, immature and petty, but we've made each other better over time. One evening he heard me falling in the walk-in closet. I yelped in surprise and my wrist banged against the wall to catch myself. He rushed to my side to make sure I was okay and asked me what happened. I may have kicked the clothes he left on the floor. Edit: khaki shorts on khaki colored closet floor mats. or pointed or straight up said it out loud. We have embellished the story over the years, so it's hard to remember the truth. But the message was, I tripped and it's because you don't pick up your clothes. He definitely said, it's 80% your fault for not looking, and went back to what he was doing. I was so mad. I took every piece of clothing I had. Edit from the hamper. I figured I would be the one cleaning it up after making my point, leaving clothes on the ground is inconsiderate, and spread it on the floor of the room. The slight furrow of his brow when he saw the mess of clothes on the ground was a start. If you trip, it's only like 20% my fault, I added. He frowned. A total success for me. It worked better than nagging, and I didn't have to stoop to being his maid. We ended our night laughing at our pettiness and picked the mess up together before going to bed. He picks up his clothes now, mostly. We now use Nerf guns to shoot each other when we squabble. This sounds like a fun relationship, and I like the fact that they use Nerf guns to shoot each other when they squabble, instead of it being something a little nastier, which it shouldn't be. The school counselor called me a liar. This happened about 10 years ago when I was in 11th grade. I had to make up 0.5 of a credit for a math class I freaked around in my freshman year. So for the first half of the school year, I made up my credit and was finished with math classes for the rest of my time in high school. At the end of the semester, the school passes out our new schedules for the second semester. Well, they gave me mine and it was missing one of my classes. They didn't bother placing me in another class at all and just left it blank. I had no way of getting home 1 hour early, so I needed another class to fill my schedule. Well, here's where it gets interesting. Well, I went to the guidance counselor to fix this mistake. The only way to see a counselor is to check in at the main desk and wait. My math class was my last period, so I sat in the office until school was let out and I went home. Next day, instead of my last period class, I sat in the office until the bell rang. I did this 4 days and went back to my math class and sat there. The math teacher got irrationally angry and kicked me out of the class because I didn't belong there. Well, day 5 of sitting in the office, I decided to tell my mother, and my mother's way of dealing with things like this was calling her mother. Personally, I hate my grandmother because she's a mean and hateful person, but it worked out for me this time. She called the school, talked to about 3 different people until she got on the line with my counselor. Well, she called my grandmother a liar and said I've been skipping classes every day. She later called me to the office and showed me her sign-in sheet. She said, "How dare you lie to your grandmother? You never signed my sheet." Well, she showed me a yellow piece of paper and the one I signed was a purple construction paper-like sheet. Well, I told her what I thought about her and she sent me back to class. My grandmother did not take being called a liar nicely. She knows the head of the school council and called him. From what I heard is she let into him so bad, he called my counselor and just let into her. She called me back to her office a little later and apologized to me and said she would immediately fix my schedule. A whole week after the schedules went out, the head council member said he was tired of her crap and wanted to fire her, but she begged him on the phone. She kept her job for 2 more years after this. And because I didn't need an actual class, they made me an office aide and I received a 100% A in that class and watched soap operas with the nurse every day and hang out with another good friend who was an aide too. Sorry for my bad writing, I went to school in rural Florida. Honestly, that sounds great. I mean, it sucks that you didn't have any way to get home an hour early considering you didn't need to be there. But if you have to be there, having to sit around and watch TV and get a 100% A, that's pretty nice. Ruining a wedding reception for fun and profit. When I was 13, so 8 years ago, my dad remarried after divorcing my mom 4 years before. Before the divorce, his fiancée had been his mistress. My mom is completely better off without him, and ignoring the fact I wouldn't exist, I don't think she should have married him in the first place. Even if I think my parents weren't a good match, that's no excuse to cheat on your wife. This woman was freaking vile in all sorts of ways. She constantly belittled me, made fun of the fact I needed to take pills for my mental illness. Despite being a freaking pharmacist, I don't get it either. And was generally awful to me and my siblings. But she was a decade younger than my dad and reasonably hot, so he didn't give a crap how she treated us. The one time he actually listened to us about her is when they were thinking of having a baby, and my brother said he'd ask our mom to sue for full custody of us if they did. So anyway, they got married. I was a bridesmaid, cause that idiot had no real friends. The other two bridesmaids were her sister and my sister. My brother was the best man, cause she didn't like my dad's best friend. He and my dad still don't talk to this day, even though the guy was like an uncle to me as a little kid. It was a wedding, everything went normally. But at the beginning of the reception, before the first dance, we were taking pictures in front of a chocolate fountain, looking like the happy family we never were and would never be. I'm on the autism spectrum and have a problem maintaining eye contact. This extends to looking at a camera. So when we had to retake a photo because I wasn't looking, she leans down and whispers something in my ear. I'm not going to repeat it, but it involved the R word. I don't like saying it. Anyway, I kinda snapped and decided she was gonna pay for this. No one noticed, or at least no one called me out, when I started slowly moving the chocolate fountain towards the edge of the table. When it got to the edge, it makes contact with the back of that pure white wedding dress and slowly drips down. By the time she notices, it looks like she crapped herself. But for all anyone else knows, this was an accident. She has no spare dress and that stain is not coming out. So first dance, cutting the cake, speeches, everything. This woman has what looks like a crap stain on the back of her dress. It was a small revenge, but it was so worth it. What's supposed to be the happiest day of this stupid woman's life, and she's gonna remember that stain every time she thinks about it. They never did get the stain out, and nobody knew it was me. Until now, I guess. Hi family, if you're reading this. Susie, you're an expletive and you deserve that chocolate stain. Subtle, but effective, and it will forever tarnish what was supposed to be her special moment when she was being a special, let's not say the word. Try to elbow your way to the front at a gig? I'll guess I'll just sing to every song. This was a few years ago in Spain. I just happened to find out that one of my favorite bands were playing a gig on the other side of the country from where I was living. As the gig was on my birthday weekend, I figured why not? So I found someone else who wanted to go. We organized it all and planned for a fun weekend of sightseeing and music. Fast forward to the gig itself, we got there at a good time so we could grab a drink and find a good spot to watch the stage. Just as the band came on, two Spanish girls started elbowing their way towards the stage, deciding to stop just in front of me, which was pretty infuriating, as they were also holding up their phones to video the band, blocking my view. Now, I know every song of the band, and I have a singing voice like a cat being washed, so I hit upon a perfect revenge. Every time this girl tried to film, I'd sing along at the top of my voice. Every dang song, as well as singing along into her ears just for fun. I ended up having a great time when avoiding her elbows, and she has zero video without my voice in it. I'm definitely standing with OP in this situation. You get there early, you get that good comfy spot, you got the great view, and then right before it happens, somebody gets aggressive and elbows their way in front of you and takes that spot up and then starts filming and blocking your view even more. Time to break out that singing voice. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today. So what I want to know is, which of these stories that I read today was your personal favorite and why? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you all so much for watching the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video from us. Thank you all again so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.